अच्छा, thank you very much. I'm from Australia, but I live in Pakistan. I've been here for 6 years now, or more than 6 years. मुझे उर्दू भी आती है, लेकिन शायद मेरी उर्दू इतना अच्छी नहीं है, और आप खुश नहीं होंगे अगर मैं ख़राब उर्दू बात करता हूँ, तो जिस तरह आप ख़राब अंग्रेज़ी बात करते हैं, लेकिन मैं बर्दाश्त करता हूँ. Anyway, so मिक्स करते हैं ना, मिक्स करते हैं, कोई थोड़ी अंग्रेजी, कोई थोड़ी उर्दू में बात करना. So atheism, मैं यहाँ से शुरू करना चाहता हूँ. Where does it, atheism is the main topic really, and where does it come from? कहाँ से है? From the Christians, I think. हाँ, Muslims तो atheist नहीं है. मुस्लिम दुनिया में, मुस्लिम अशरा में atheist शायद चंद है, शायद मजीद होगा, लेकिन मशहूर एथियस्ट या ये सब वहाँ से है ना, वहाँ से है जो क्रिश्चियन कहते हैं, क्रिश्चियन मुल्क में, क्रिश्चियन वेस्ट. तो क्यों? My question is, why did so many Christian believers stop believing in God? Why did they become atheists? ये भी पूछना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल है. वो क्यों? पहले क्रिश्चियन थे, कितनी 100 साल या 1000 साल से ज्यादा ये सब क्रिश्चियन थे, और इसके बाद एक न्यू एज आ गया जो हम एनलाइटनमेंट कहते हैं ना, एनलाइटनमेंट और एज ऑफ रीजन. हम अब जानते हैं इसके बारे में. 17th 18th centuries, yes, 7वीं 8वीं सदी में साइंस डेवलपमेंट की वजह से मुख्तलिफ वजूहात एक नया मूवमेंट शुरू हुआ जो अक्ल पे बहुत ज़्यादा अहमियत देता था. They stressed the importance of aql, and they began to think that everything can be understood. सब कुछ हम समझ सकते हैं. देखो, साइंस इतना डेवलप हो रहे हैं मुख्तलिफ शोबे में, या इतना दरियाफ्त उस दौर में आया, इतना बहुत सारे दरियाफ्तें, discoveries, scientific discoveries. So these Christian believers, they began to say that, okay, God is what is God? What is God? We can't prove him. We can't experiment. So maybe he's not there, or maybe he's up there somewhere. Maybe he's in the sky somewhere in heaven, but that's all. Yeah, deism. आप जानते हैं शायद deism, आपने सुना होगा. तो deism कहते हैं कि Allah तो है, but Allah is just, he began everything. Allah created and then left the world to follow its own natural laws. God made the natural laws, but then the natural laws were just left alone, and God did not कोई मदाखलत नहीं किया. He did not interfere anymore. So these people became deists. That's just a word. Just deism एक लफ्ज़ है इस फ़लसफ़ा के लिए, जो समझते हैं कि अल्लाह है लेकिन कोई मदाखलत नहीं करते, क्योंकि अल्लाह ऑलरेडी सब कुछ बनाया और हमारा अक्ल भी बनाया. तो ये अभी हमारी जिम्मेदारी है ये दुनिया चलाना और दरियाफ्ती करना और दरियाफ्ती इस्तेमाल करना, हमारी ज़िंदगी ठीक करवाना. That's our responsibility, not God's responsibility. So God became distant, slowly became far away. And then eventually, gradually, people said, we don't need God. We don't need him anymore. Because we can think, because we can discover, we can organize the world, we can run our own lives. And these people, you might say, are atheists. Why are they atheists? Because they are rejecting a false idea of God, I think. They are rejecting the idea that God exists just the same as this thing exists. This table exists. You and I exist. And God exists. No, you can't say that. ये नामुमकिन है. God ऐसा exist तो नहीं होता जिस तरह हम exist होता है. जिस तरह table या animals, जिस तरह कायनात exist होता है, ऐसा नहीं होता. अगर ऐसे होता है तो अल्लाह एक चीज है कायनात में. If Allah exists like tables and chairs and human beings, means Allah is an object in the world, in the universe. He's another object. And so these philosophers said, cannot be, that God cannot be, that kind of God. We don't need that God and he does not exist. And so they also gradually dropped the proofs for the existence of God, like the unmoved mover or the designer or the necessary being. वो कहते हैं ये क्या proof है? कोई proof नहीं होता. And if you prove it, even if you prove it, then you have proved that God is some kind of being up there. He started everything. He has started everything, and he's one of the world. And these people rightly, according to me, said, no, God cannot be like that. God cannot be just another being up there or far away who started the ball rolling, started the universe, the unmoved mover, the designer. A designer means he's also like you and me. A designer means he's like you and me. हम भी designer हैं. वो सबसे बड़ा designer है. So what? That's not God. God एक बड़ा designer तो नहीं है. God, Allahu Akbar. God is greater than any concept we may have. God is greater than any tasawwur जो हम सोच सकते हैं. कोई tasawwur जो हम अल्लाह के बारे में है हमारे पास, ये अल्लाह नहीं है. अगर हमारे पास कोई tasawwur है अल्लाह के बारे में, ये अल्लाह नहीं है, ये हमारा tasawwur है. तो इसलिए though these Christian theologians, these Christian philosophers, they said we have to find another God. We have to find the real God. And they searched and they realized, some of them, that this idea of aql is too narrow. And I think some of the papers this morning have already said that. ये aql जो age of reason से आया, जो enlightenment पैदा किया, वो अकल बहुत तंग है, बहुत महदूद है, और इससे हम अल्लाह के पास नहीं जा सकते हैं, और अल्लाह के बारे में कोई तसव्वुर नहीं हो सकता है. We are making God into an object that exists, and that Allah is not Allah. That's our own idea of Allah. And some of these people began to realize that we need to also look at our feeling and our imagination, and our intuition. Intuition, I think, is firasat, एहसास, ख्यालात, ये भी इसमें शामिल होना चाहिए. सिर्फ अक्ल नहीं है. अगर सिर्फ अक्ल तो क्या है, बहुत महदूद है, और इसकी वजह से बहुत मसाइल पैदा होता है. लेकिन अगर हम अक्ल के साथ भी महसूस करते हैं और हमारे ख्यालात भी इस्तेमाल करते हैं, और हम भी महसूस करते हैं कि हम तारीख में मौजूद है, तो शायद हम ये narrow concept of reason, we can change it, we can broaden it, we can develop it. Because reason itself, and I haven't said this much yet, but reason itself was cut off from history in the age of reason. Reason was just like a faculty, like a qabiliyat, that's it. But reason is not just a faculty, a qabiliyat, a biological ability, qabiliyat jo mere paas hai, aapke paas hai. Reason, like us, we are situated in time, in history. And so this so-called faculty of reason is also influenced by time and by history. And therefore it is always changing. You can't say Aql is just the same from one generation, from one century to another century. Aql is always the same. Not at all. Aql is always changing because we are always changing. And our thinking is influenced by our environment, by our context, by our culture, by our upbringing, by our education. Your thinking, my thinking is so different because of the culture, because of the background which we come from. Yeah. And it's constantly changing because of this cultural situation. So many things are changing all the time. So there's no such thing as aql as such. It's aql, of course, but situated in time and also aware of feeling and imagination. And so gradually, I think we are discovering a new sense of reason, which may help us to help us Christians to rediscover God in the West. Maybe. If we do not rediscover, if we do not find another way of using our aql, we will not rediscover God. So I think I would like to, there's many things I also could say, but I think I've said most of what I wanted to say. And I think, one other thing I would like to say, that in the Christian West, it's not only a question of aql, it's also a question of mystical awareness. So I think to balance a little bit what I've said about the Christian West, I think to be fair to the Christian West, there's a big history of experiencing God, not just thinking about God or trying to understand God. That came in the 17th and 18th century. But before that, in the Middle Ages, and after that time, and right until today, many Christians in the West are contemplating, and through contemplation are discovering God in some sense. And the big names, there are big names in this area, of course. I can't go into all that now, but I'd like just to say briefly that the big leaders of this movement of contemplation, they say, leave behind your thinking. Don't think when you want to meet God, don't use your reason. That's not very trustworthy, not very helpful. Leave all your thoughts behind. Because God is nothing. God is no thing. God is no thing. God exists, but he's no thing. God he's nothing. So you cannot think of him. I've already said that. So when you sit in contemplation, then we can try to leave behind all our thoughts, all our concepts about God, and we just remain perhaps in his presence. Maybe the word presence, maybe. Remain in his presence, or as Buber said, Jewish philosopher, we encounter God. You can only encounter God. You can't think about God. You can't have a concept tasawwur about God, but you can encounter, like meet God in a personal, some kind of personal relationship. But even that word personal is also a concept. So, I'm not sure that that's correct either. But at least these mystics or these contemplatives in the East, in the Christian tradition, they enter into what they call a cloud of unknowing. That's their term. A cloud of unknowing. In other words, they enter into darkness. And that's where they have a sense of God. And that's, for me personally, it's very attractive, I have to say. I think this is very trustworthy path. I've been following this path for many years. When I pray, when I sit in prayer, I drop all my thinking, I drop all the names and everything about God. I don't try and imagine God. I just come maybe into his presence. I do think I have a sense of his presence. I can say that personally. Not everybody would say that, but I can say that. Some people would not even use the word presence. They would just be without any images and without any sensation, but try to forget what they have learned about God, try to forget that, and be open to the reality of God. Because God is always above us, is always beyond us. And the reality of God is always to be learned again and again, and not to be grasped in any kind of proof or concept. Thank you very much.